She has carried it her whole life. The one fear that hides behind every silence, every delay, every tear. It's not just about him. It's not just about love. It's about the wound that whispers, what if I'm left behind? What if I'm never enough? What if it was all in my head? And now, that fear is rising, not softly, but loudly, not later, but now. Because before the divine feminine can step into union, the universe makes her face the very thing she has avoided the most. This is not the end of your journey. It is the threshold. And the way you move through this moment will decide everything. Will you collapse into fear, or will you rise in faith? Why the feminine's biggest fear appears before union. On the twin flame journey, timing is never random. Every rise, every collapse, every cycle serves a purpose. And when the divine feminine begins to feel her biggest fear rising, so strong it shakes her body and floods her thoughts, it's not a sign that she has failed. It's a sign that she has reached the edge of the journey. Because the greatest fear always appears right before the breakthrough. The feminine has always been the vessel, the mirror, the anchor. She carries the field of the union in her energy. That means she feels everything first. The pressure, the waves, the shifts that most others never notice. And because she is so sensitive to the field, her shadow also rises first. She is the one who must clear the deepest wounds so the masculine can follow. But why does the universe bring her biggest fear now, right at the threshold of union? Because she cannot step into union carrying it. Fear cannot coexist with the vibration of reunion. If she still holds the wound of abandonment, rejection, invisibility, or unworthiness in her body, it will poison the field. Union is too pure, too sacred, to be built on shadow. So the universe forces her to face it, not to punish her, but to free her. And here is the paradox. The fear rises stronger right when union is closest. That's why it feels so cruel, so unbearable. Just when she feels she has done all the work, cried all the tears, survived all the silence, suddenly her heart is gripped again. Suddenly, the wound feels raw. Suddenly, she feels like she is back at the beginning. But she isn't. This is not regression. This is completion. The final layer surfacing so it can be released for good. Think about it. The feminine's biggest fear has always been abandonment in some form. The fear that she will be forgotten, unseen, unloved, or left behind. This fear didn't start with her masculine. It began long before, in childhood, in past relationships, even in lifetimes before. The masculine's silence and resistance only pressed on a wound that already existed. And now, at the edge of union, the universe says, "This cannot come with you. You must walk through it, or you cannot walk through at all." That's why it feels like collapse. That's why the body trembles, the tears pour, the mind spins with doubt. Because the old story is dying, and as it dies, it screams one last time. The feminine might think, "Why now? Haven't I already healed this?" And the answer is yes. She has healed it layer by layer. But the deepest root of the fear remains. And only when she stands at the threshold of union does the universe press on that root so she can finally cut it out. The masculine has his own fears: fear of failure, fear of not being enough, fear of losing control. But the feminine's greatest fear has always been the possibility that she would give her whole heart and still be left behind. That fear must be dissolved. Because in union, she cannot hold back. She must love without conditions, without walls, without doubts. And that kind of love cannot coexist with the wound of abandonment. So the universe stages the test. The silence deepens. The energy intensifies. The old wounds ache. She feels unseen, forgotten, invisible again. But this time, the purpose is different. This time, it is not to break her. It is to reveal her strength. It is to prove to her that even if her worst fear rises, she will not collapse. She will not lose herself. She will not be destroyed. Because the truth is, her biggest fear was never real. She was never truly abandoned. She was never truly unseen. The masculine silence was not rejection. It was resistance. Her doubt was not prophecy. It was shadow. And now, as the fear rises one last time, the universe asks, will you believe the shadow, or will you trust the truth? This is why the feminine's biggest fear comes right before union, because walking through it proves she is ready. It proves she can hold the field no matter what the physical shows. It proves she has the faith required to anchor union into reality. Her fear rises because it is leaving, and when it is gone, nothing will stand in her way. One of the most difficult lessons for the divine feminine on this journey is surrendering the illusion of control. For so long, she has tried to manage the connection with her mind, analyzing his silence, reading signs, replaying conversations, interpreting dreams, asking over and over, what does this mean? What should I do? This constant need for answers is the ego's way of trying to stay safe. But the truth is this: there is no safety in control. There never was. The twin flame journey is designed to shatter the illusion that you can control timing, actions, or outcomes. And that is why, right before union, the feminine feels everything she once leaned on begin to collapse. This collapse feels terrifying. The routines, the expectations, the rules she used to follow no longer work. The more she tries to hold on, the heavier it feels. The masculine doesn't respond to pressure. The universe doesn't respond to manipulation. And the heart knows it cannot keep living in the loop of fear. So the old strategies fall apart. This is not failure, this is freedom. The illusion of control must die before union, because union can only be built on surrender. Not passive surrender, but active surrender. The choice to trust when nothing makes sense. The decision to stay anchored in love when the mind screams doubt. For the feminine, this loss of control can feel like chaos. She may feel restless, anxious, even angry. She may cry out to the universe, "Why are you doing this to me? Why take away the little stability I had?" But the deeper truth is that this instability is the medicine. Every time she loses the false control of the ego, she gains the real stability of the soul. The masculine mirrors this process too. His illusions collapse in a different way. The job that no longer satisfies, the relationships that feel empty, the distractions that lose their grip. But the feminine experiences it first, and she feels it more deeply because she is the one designed to clear the path. So why does this collapse come right before union? Because the feminine must enter union stripped of illusion. If she still believes she can control him, force timing, or demand guarantees, the field cannot stabilize. She would carry fear into the sacred bond, and fear distorts everything. This is why the universe tests her so strongly now. The silence grows louder. The signs become more intense, but also more confusing. The old ways of figuring it out fail completely. And in that void, she has only one choice left: trust. Trust is the opposite of control. Trust says, "I don't need to know how. I don't need to know when. I only know that it is." Trust is not weakness. It is the deepest strength. Because only someone who has faced her biggest fear can stand in trust when nothing makes sense. The feminine's ego will fight this. It will whisper, "If you don't control this, you'll lose him. If you don't take action, he'll forget you. If you don't make it happen, it won't happen at all." But these are lies. They always were. Because the soul knows union is not created by control. It is created by alignment. And alignment has nothing to do with managing the masculine's actions. Alignment means embodying truth, holding faith, living your mission, and refusing to collapse into fear. Alignment means realizing that the bond doesn't depend on his choices alone. It depends on the vibration you both carry. And when the feminine holds her side, the masculine eventually has no choice but to meet her there. The illusion of control is falling away because it was never real to begin with. And yes, it will feel like collapse, but it is only the collapse of the false. What remains is the real, a love that does not need proof, a bond that does not need explanation, a union that does not need control. This is the feminine's initiation, to stand steady while everything she once leaned on crumbles. To discover that she doesn't need control to feel safe. She only needs truth. Because when the illusion of control dies, love is finally free to live. Silence. For the divine feminine, it has always been the hardest mirror to face. Words can be explained, actions can be forgiven, but silence is a void that feels endless. It leaves her suspended between hope and despair, forcing her to hear not his voice, but her own fears echoing louder than ever. And this is where the real test begins, because the silence itself is not the wound. The wound is what rises beneath it. Every unanswered message, every day without a sign. Every night she lies awake, wondering if he has forgotten her. All of it stirs the old narrative. You're not enough. You're invisible. You're abandoned. The silence is not rejection, but her mind makes it so. And because the silence has no explanation, the ego fills it with its worst stories. But this is exactly why the universe allows the silence to stretch. Because beneath it, the feminine can finally see what she still carries. Silence strips away the distractions. It exposes the raw wound she has always feared to touch. And if she has the courage to look deeper, she realizes it's not him causing this pain. It's the memory of every time she felt forgotten, unseen, or unloved, long before he ever arrived. This is why the silence is sacred. It is not a punishment, it is a mirror. It shows her the wound still alive within her so she can finally face it. And yet, most run from this mirror. They fill the silence with panic, with doubt, with desperate action. They try to force words, demand answers, break the void. But the more they fight the silence, the more it stretches, because the point was never to break it. The point was to recognize what it reveals. The feminine must ask herself, What am I actually afraid of here? Is it that he doesn't love me? Or is it that I don't trust love itself? Is it that he has abandoned me? Or is it that I still carry the memory of being abandoned before? Is it that I am invisible? Or is it that I still struggle to see myself clearly? These questions pierce the illusions because the silence is not about him at all. It is about her relationship with herself. If she collapses into fear, she repeats the old story. But if she uses the silence to look within, she sees the wound for what it is, an echo, not the truth. And here lies the paradox. When she recognizes the fear beneath the silence, she begins to dissolve it. She no longer sees the masculine's stillness as rejection, but as a sacred stage set by the universe. She no longer interprets his absence as abandonment, but as an invitation to anchor her presence. She no longer lets the void consume her because she has discovered that her own light can fill it. This is where the feminine's power awakens. Not in chasing, not in demanding, not in controlling, but in seeing the silence for what it really is. A test, a reflection, a final purge of the fear she cannot carry into union. The silence hurts because it strips her bare, but it is only in that emptiness that she discovers she was never truly empty. She was never truly alone. And once she recognizes this, the silence loses its power. It is no longer a void, it is a doorway. The truth is, the masculine's silence is not against her. It is part of his process, his resistance, his way of avoiding his own fears. But the feminine's task is different, to face hers fully, so that when the masculine is finally ready to rise, she is already standing in her truth. So the question is not, why is he silent? The question is, what is this silence showing me about myself? And when she has the courage to answer that honestly, the silence no longer destroys her, it frees her. Because recognizing the fear beneath the silence is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of mastery. After the silence stretches, after the fear rises, another layer often follows, the trap of doubt and despair. This is where the divine feminine feels not just fear, but exhaustion. She begins to wonder, what if I made all of this up? What if I was wrong about the signs, the connection, the purpose of this journey? What if I'm chasing an illusion? These questions don't appear because the bond is false. They appear because the ego is desperate to protect itself from more pain. Doubt becomes the shield. If I convince myself this isn't real, maybe I won't feel the wound again. But the shield quickly turns into a prison, because the more she doubts, the heavier she feels. The more she questions, the more despair creeps in. Despair is the ego's final weapon. It whispers, "Give up. Stop believing. Walk away. Nothing will change." And for the feminine, this is the most dangerous moment. Not because walking away would end the journey. It never could. But because despair threatens to close her heart. And once the heart closes, the flow of union is blocked. It's important to understand the trap of doubt and despair always appears when union is near. Why? Because the vibration of union is so high that the last remnants of fear and disbelief must surface. The old self, built on survival and control, cannot enter union. So it resists with everything it has, trying to convince her that all is lost. But this is where discernment becomes her weapon. She must learn to hear the voice of despair and recognize it for what it is. Not truth, but shadow. Not prophecy, but fear. She must ask herself, does this thought expand me or contract me? Does it bring peace or poison? Because the soul always speaks in expansion. The ego always speaks in contraction. The masculine also feels this trap, though differently. For him, despair often comes as failure. I'll never be good enough. I'll never be ready. I'll only hurt her more. For the feminine, it comes as invisibility. He'll never see me. He'll never choose me. I'm wasting my time. But both are illusions. Both are shadows being burned away by the intensity of the connection. The danger lies not in the doubts themselves, but in believing them, because thoughts have energy. If the feminine feeds despair, she lowers her vibration and delays the union field. But if she can face the despair without collapsing into it, she transforms it. She proves that her faith is stronger than fear, that her love is stronger than shadow. This is why the universe allows doubt to rise, not to punish her, but to strengthen her discernment, to teach her how to separate illusion from truth, to force her to choose, not once, but every day, every moment. Do I collapse into despair, or do I rise in faith? And here is the secret. Despair only has power if it is hidden. Once it is seen, once it is named, it loses its grip. When she says, yes, I feel the doubt. Yes, I hear the despair, but I know it is not the truth. In that moment, she is free. Because freedom is not the absence of shadow. Freedom is the ability to recognize shadow and still choose light. The trap of doubt and despair is terrifying because it feels final. It feels like the end. but in truth, it is only a test, a final storm before the calm, a last push from the old energy before the new one fully arrives. And if she can walk through it without closing her heart, she will discover something incredible. The despair was never real. It was only the echo of a story that no longer belongs to her. The feminine's task is not to pretend she never doubts. It is to doubt and still choose faith. It is to feel despair and still choose love. That is true mastery. That is the vibration that clears the last shadow and opens the field for union. Because the truth is, despair is the illusion, love is the reality. And when she chooses love again and again, the trap collapses. The shadow dissolves, and the doorway to union finally opens. How to anchor yourself when fear rises. The silence, the fear, the doubt, the despair. Each wave comes not to destroy you, but to test your foundation. And in these moments, the divine feminine must ask, where do I stand when everything else collapses? Because this is the essence of anchoring, finding stability in something deeper than emotion, deeper than circumstance, deeper than fear. When fear rises, the first instinct is usually reaction. The mind races. What should I do? Should I reach out? Should I walk away? Should I give up? The body contracts. The heart feels heavy. The nervous system fires as if survival is at stake. But here's the truth. Fear is not asking for action. Fear is asking for presence. To anchor yourself means to stop running from the fear and instead breathe into it. To feel it without identifying with it. To hold it without letting it define you. The feminine's power has never been control. Her power is embodiment. She anchors not by forcing an outcome, but by becoming the vibration that dissolves fear. That means slowing down, grounding, breathing, and remembering. I am not this fear. I am the one who witnesses it. There are many ways the feminine can anchor herself when fear rises. Through the body, move, stretch, dance, or place your hand over your heart and belly. Remind your nervous system that you are safe. When the body feels safe, the fear loses its grip. Through the breath, fear often comes with shallow, frantic breathing. By inhaling deeply and exhaling slowly, you signal to your energy, I am here, I am steady, I am safe. Through stillness, instead of reacting to the silence or doubt, choose to sit with yourself. Meditate, journal, or simply witness the storm passing through you. The more you sit with it, the more you see that it is not permanent. Through truth, speak to the fear directly. You are not me. You are only a memory. You are leaving. Naming the fear strips it of its power. Anchoring is not about denying fear. It's about giving it a container so it cannot drown you. When you anchor yourself, you become the ground in the storm. The waves may crash, but they do not move you. The masculine feels this anchoring even if he doesn't understand it. When the feminine holds steady instead of collapsing, he feels the field stabilize. Her energy tells him, "We are safe. This bond is unbreakable. You don't need to run." And slowly, his own fear begins to loosen. This is how the feminine leads. Not by chasing, not by controlling, but by embodying the truth of safety and love. Anchoring yourself also means remembering your mission. The twin flame journey is not only about union, it is about embodying love in the world. When fear rises, shift your focus, create, serve, speak truth, share your gifts. The more you live your purpose, the less power fear has. Because fear thrives in idleness, but it dissolves in movement aligned with soul. There will be moments where the fear feels unbearable, where the silence feels endless, where doubt whispers louder than truth. In those moments, anchoring is not optional. It is survival. And every time you choose to anchor instead of collapse, you rewire your entire energy field. You prove to yourself and to the universe that you can hold the vibration of union. Remember, fear rises because it is leaving. If you anchor yourself through it, the wave passes faster. If you fight it or run from it, the wave repeats again and again. The key is not resistance, but presence. Not control, but surrender. Anchoring is the feminine's greatest gift to herself. Because once she knows how to hold herself in fear, nothing can destabilize her. Not silence, not delay, not even separation. She becomes unshakable, and an unshakable feminine is unstoppable, both in her own mission and in her union. So the next time fear rises, don't ask, "How do I get rid of this?" Ask instead, "How do I anchor deeper into truth right now?" Because every time you do, the fear dissolves a little more, until one day it no longer rises at all. What happens in him when she no longer collapses? This is the mystery most feminines long to understand, and yet it is not always visible on the surface. The masculine rarely announces his shifts, rarely speaks his breakthroughs. But beneath the silence, beneath the resistance, something profound is happening when she chooses courage over fear. The bond between twin flames is not a simple connection. It is an energetic mirror. When the feminine anchors herself, she stabilizes the field of the union. That stability ripples through the cord that binds them. Suddenly, the masculine no longer feels the storm of her panic pressing against him. He no longer feels the weight of her fear in his chest. Instead, he feels space. He feels clarity. He feels a safety he has never known before. For the masculine, fear often takes the form of pressure. Pressure to be enough. Pressure to provide. Pressure to step forward before he is ready. Every time the feminine collapses into fear, that pressure amplifies in his system. He interprets it as suffocation, and his instinct is to pull away. Not because he doesn't care, but because he cannot breathe under the weight of her unanchored energy. But when she stands strong, when she holds her heart open, even in the silence, even in the waiting, everything shifts. Suddenly, he feels her love without demand. He feels her presence without pressure. He feels her strength without needing to rescue her. And this changes him because what the masculine fears most is failing her. But when she proves she can hold herself, he realizes he cannot truly fail. The union does not depend on his perfection. It depends on their alignment. This recognition begins to soften his resistance. He may not reach out immediately. He may not confess everything overnight, but his energy begins to turn. His defenses begin to lower, because for the first time, he feels safe enough to face his own fears without carrying hers as well. And this is the turning point, the moment where his journey inward begins in earnest. The masculine's response to her courage often looks invisible at first. He may stay silent, he may appear distant, but deep inside, he is recalibrating. He is feeling the vibration of love without fear, and it begins to awaken something ancient in him. A memory of truth, a recognition of home, and slowly he starts to mirror her. He begins to find his own courage, to question his own shadows, to realize that running is no longer the answer. Because if she can stand in the fire of fear and not collapse, then so can he. This is why the feminine's courage is so essential. She is the anchor, the one who clears the path, not by dragging him forward, but by standing so firm in her truth that he cannot deny it anymore. Her courage does not force him to move. It inspires him to move. It shows him what is possible. And when the masculine responds, it is not just for her. It is for the bond itself. He begins to feel the sacredness of what they share. He begins to recognize that this connection is not a threat to his freedom, but the doorway to it. He begins to see that the union is not here to break him, but to make him whole. Her courage births his awakening. Her steadiness calls forth his strength. Her faith becomes the mirror that shows him his own. This is the dance of twin flames. One rises, and the other cannot help but rise too. The feminine leads with courage, and the masculine responds with surrender. And together they create the vibration of union, not in fantasy, but in reality. So if you ever wonder whether your courage matters, whether your anchoring is felt, whether your strength makes a difference, the answer is yes. Always yes. Because every time you choose faith over fear, he feels it. Every time you stand strong instead of collapsing, the field clears. And every time you embody courage, you remind him of who he truly is. The masculine's response to her courage is the quiet shift that precedes the visible breakthrough. It may be subtle, it may be unseen, but it is inevitable, because in the end, courage is contagious. Every step of this journey has been preparing you for this moment. The silence, the doubt, the despair, the waves of fear. None of it was random. None of it was punishment. It was initiation. Because union is not given lightly. Union is not built on shadow. Union requires the feminine and the masculine to stand in truth so powerful that no fear, no illusion, no delay can shake it. And this is why the biggest fear rises right before union. It is the last guardian at the gate, the final test before crossing the threshold. The universe does not put this fear in your path to break you. It puts it there to reveal to you that you are already free. That what you thought could destroy you has no real power anymore. Think of it, the story of abandonment, invisibility, rejection. It has followed you for lifetimes. It shaped your childhood. It echoed through every relationship. It whispered through every silence with your masculine. And yet, here you are, still standing, still loving, still believing. If that fear had the power to destroy you, it would have done so long ago. But it didn't, because it was never truth. It was always shadow. The last door always feels the heaviest, not because it is impossible, but because it is final. When you walk through it, you can never go back. And this is what terrifies the ego. The ego clings to old pain because it is familiar. It resists freedom because freedom means change. But the soul knows you were not born to repeat fear. You were born to dissolve it. You were born to lead it out of the shadows. So when the fear rises, do not see it as a curse. See it as a signpost. It means you are close. It means you are standing exactly where you were always meant to stand, at the doorway of union. And the only key you need to cross that door is faith. Faith that you are enough. Faith that you are seen. Faith that you are loved beyond words, beyond time, beyond form. The masculine will meet you there. Maybe not in the way your mind expects. Maybe not on the timeline your ego demands. But he cannot resist the field once you hold it steady. Because the truth of union is magnetic. When the feminine embodies courage, the masculine eventually has no choice but to respond. That is the law of this bond. This is the last door, the door of fear. And once you walk through it, everything changes. The silence loses its sting, the doubts dissolve, the despair collapses, and all that remains is the pure, unshakable knowing. We were never separate, we were never broken, we were never lost. Union is not something you chase. It is something you allow, and it begins the moment you realize that fear was never stronger than love, that your courage was always the medicine, that your faith was always the key. So take this final message to heart. When the fear rises, do not collapse. Do not turn back. Do not believe the lie that it is the end. It is not the end. It is the door. And on the other side of that door, everything you have prayed for, cried for, fought for, is waiting. The feminine does not need to wait for permission to walk through. She does not need to wait for a sign, for a word, for a guarantee. She only needs to choose love when fear screams, to choose faith when doubt roars, to choose truth when silence echoes. And when she does, the union is inevitable. Because the last door is not meant to stop you. It is meant to crown you. Walk through it. The future you've been waiting for is already here.